Good morning, everyone. Dr. Salama, Dr. Amr Salama, Dr. Mahmoud Al-Gamal, Dr. Tariq Salim, ladies and gentlemen, it's indeed an honor and a pleasure to be here with you today. I did study at AUC for the first couple of years in my college education, then I left and graduated from CSU, but it's a very dear place to my heart. It's where I started my college years and where my boys got their education, so it's an honor indeed, and I'm very happy to be amongst friends and to see many familiar faces and of some of my professors, my kids' professors, and some of my friends and colleagues. So it is indeed an honor and a pleasure. It's also very nice to see you in this conference, and it is, I'm very grateful that you have invited me to speak to you, because we're coming from a very rich experience in Sharm el-Sheikh, just arrived last night, and it was indeed a very rich and fulfilling experience to all of us and to those who are watching it. It's a great feeling to feel the level of support that this country receives, the level of respect that this country receives from the region and from the rest of the world. And a message that came across again and again, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, was about Egypt and its relationship with the region, and how the stability and the development and the economic development and the social development in Egypt is relevant to the well-being and the prosperity of the region, not just of the region, but of the whole world. We were told by the head of IFIs, the heads of states, kings, prime ministers, that this country is quite central, that this country at this time with its people represents the hope for this region, for stability, for social inclusion, for social policy, for economic development. Everyone said it in many different ways and in many different words. If this country makes it, then we're all going to make it. So it is a very important timing, where next week we will be doing the Arab Summit in Egypt, and the Arab Summit will also take place in Sharm el-Sheikh. And we hope that the deliberations, the conclusions, whatever you discuss, and the recommendations you come up with will also feed in the work that we're going to be doing in Sharm el-Sheikh, where we are going to, and the President is going to announce what we call I'lan Sharm el-Sheikh, which is going to be presented to the General Assembly and in September, inshallah. So let me take you very quickly through this presentation. I didn't want it to be a speech. I just wanted to share with you some of the data and tell you what this government is doing and what we hope that will happen in the next few years, and what we hope we will do with the region as well. So this country is a country of unfortunately missed opportunities. Mahmoud mentioned this very briefly when he said we will meet in a number of years asking the same questions and deliberating on the same answers. This is not very optimistic. I hope that in a few years we will be meeting and we will be telling each other stories of success, and we will be sharing best practices, and we'll be talking to the future generation about what we were able to do and what we were able to accomplish, because we cannot afford to waste more time. By the way, Crocodile Dundee was the first movie I saw when I landed in the US to finish my studies. So I feel very much what you say, and it's really a story of missed opportunities and wasted time. Many of the stuff you will see in this presentation and many of the things that were discussed in 2004, 2005, 2006, and 2007, when people like us, development practitioners, then were producing the MDGs reports, the National Human Development reports, and the different development agencies were telling government, hey, you're making money, please start to become more inclusive, please take care, people are not very happy. 2010, produced in just a few months before the January Revolution, the National Human Development Report has a title, Youth. And the message was clear, youth in this country are not included and are not happy. 2005, the National Human Development Report has a title, Social Contract. We need a new social contract for this country. And then 2006, the National Human Development Report had civil society and their role in development. So we were growing, and we were doing well. However, before the years 2000, 2003, 4, 5, 6, We were growing, but poverty was also increasing. We did not see the proper rise in wages, in income, and poverty rate was on the rise. And this is what was happening in Egypt. We had growing poverty in rural Upper Egypt. We had very alarming signals, and we still do have those signals, that the highest quintiles are benefiting from the growth that was happening, and the lowest quintiles were not benefiting from the growth that was happening. If you come from a poor family, you will obviously stay jobless for a longer number of years. If you are a pregnant woman in the poorest quintile, then most probably your delivery will be unattended. And if you are from a poor family, then your opportunity to go to college is much less. If you happen to live in rural Upper Egypt, then you are obviously away from reaping the benefits of development and from benefiting from whatever is happening in Cairo and in the centers. And this is what was happening. We were spending money on subsidies, but most of the subsidies were going to the richest quintiles, and the poorest were not really benefiting. And this is how the pie was distributed. Not very people were getting the benefits of a universal subsidy system, and the non-poor and the less poor were getting more than the poor were getting. So we were spending money, but it was not going to the right people. What we want to say, and what we have been saying for years, and what this government strongly believes in, that inclusive growth matters. And that we are changing because the world has changed, because we have to learn the lesson. Inclusive growth is not just a mere policy of poverty reduction. It's not just about building social safety nets. Inclusive growth is very important for sustainable development. So if we are serious about sustainable development, then we have to grow, but we have to grow in an inclusive manner. We have to grow in a manner that includes women, 50% of this population, more than 50% of this population, yet unemployment among women is 4 times unemployment among men. We have to include youth, 2/3 of the population, yet unemployment among youth is 30%. We have to include Upper Egypt, and we have to include the peripheries, because their investments in infrastructure is very low and indeed unacceptable. So what we have been learning from other countries who did it is that inclusive growth matters. And look at these countries, you all know better. Countries have done it, countries are able to do it, and they have done it in less than a decade. So you could grow and you could include the poor, but this does not happen all alone. You have to really work in different ways with different partners, and you have to continue working for a number of years. What is it that we're doing? What we want to say here is that inclusive growth is not just good for the poor. Inclusion is not just because we're good people and we have to be good to the poor. Inclusive growth is important because it's good for political stability, it's good for more growth, and it's good for sustainable development. So what are we doing? What we are doing is we are adopting some policies, and these policies include income redistribution, citizen engagement, and better access to basic services. This should lead, with time, to more equality, to human capital accumulation, and to broad-based growth. We hope that this will increase labor productivity and will lead to political stability and improve the investment climate. When you have healthier population, when you have a happier population, when you have a population that is well-educated, well-trained, engaged, and participating in the development of the country, this is very good for development, and this is very good for investors, and this was our message to our clients and friends and investors in Sharm el-Sheikh. Okay, what have we done? What are we doing? And what are we trying to do? The political commitment is there at the highest level, and it wasn't there at all times. We were talking about it, but this time we're trying to walk the talk. We're trying to work also on an enabling environment and develop the proper policy tools. How are we doing that? This stems from our constitution, where it all started. We have a constitution in 2014, which in my opinion has many problems, but not the problems related to social and political rights. So on this part, they're good. Ensuring social rights, equality of opportunity, fair distribution of development outcomes, and reducing income gaps is clearly spelled out in our constitution. And this is very important as a base to develop the proper legislative environment. We have been working during the last year on national development plans, a plan that is called Egypt 2030 that is being developed and coordinated by the Ministry of Planning, where all ministries are participating. And we are looking at medium and long-term development plans in different sectors. Then we go deeper into sector-specific strategies. One of our very important strategies is the energy strategy that was developed at the Ministry of Electricity, and how we are intending to reform the subsidies going to the energy sector, specifically to the electricity sector, and removing the subsidy from the highest quintile and bringing it down to the lowest quintile. So when it comes to natural gas consumption, the highest quintile is not anymore subsidized. Those who use natural gas to heat their swimming pools are not entitled to subsidy from government. They're welcome to do so, but they should pay the real cost of natural gas. Same with the gasoline 95. If you can afford a car that takes only 95, then you're very happy to have this car, but please pay the gasoline that you are consuming, and so on and so forth. Not just that, but we are looking at also the cash transfers and the ration cards, because those are going way beyond the targeted group. The ongoing cash transfer program of Egypt has an estimated leakage rate of 40%. And these supply cards and the ration cards are reaching 68 million people. And this is way beyond the number that deserves subsidy in food. So we are moving from universal to targeted subsidies, trying to identify where are the poor, who are the poor, what is their profile, and how can we reach them. At the policy level, we're constantly discussing the equitable redistribution of subsidies to improve targeting and efficiency. And there we are using a number of tools that were already existing. The household income expenditure survey that Egypt produces is very important. We have worked on developing poverty maps, so we can tell where are the poor in Egypt, where are they centered, where can we find them. And this is using the latest tools to geographical targeting. We have a map that goes to the village level, to the district level, and even to the satellite village levels, that tells us that in these places, this is the percentage of poor. Once you know the percentage of poor, in Asyut, we know that 70% of the inhabitants of Asyut are poor. We need to identify which 70% and how are we going to reach them and why are they poor. So we start working at different ministries on this subject. And this needed better coordination, so we have a Ministerial Social Justice Committee that is coordinated by the Ministry of Social Solidarity, that is headed by the Prime Minister, and this avails a coordination mechanism that was not existing before. We used to have an economic committee that was quite powerful and active. We continue to have one. The Social Justice Committee was less active and hardly met, and it was not headed by the Prime Minister. So we empowered this as an institutional coordination mechanism. This time around, the government believes that we're not going to do it alone. We want to work with the private sector, we want to work with civil society, and want to work with IFIs. So what have we done? As I said, we have worked on poverty maps, and then we have used PMTs. And these are proxy means tools, and we have applications online where people register and where we develop the profile of the poor by asking a set of questions. This is very much built on the models that were used in Latin America for targeting. We're working on a unified national registry. This has been going on for years. That's why I was saying this is a story of wasted time. The first time we had a visit by Chile Solidario, by Bolsa Familia, it was in 2006. And I'm happy to see Dr. Ahmed Darwish, who has witnessed this with the previous governments, telling them, guys, you're growing, please be more inclusive. But apparently they weren't listening. So unified national registry with a dedicated social welfare ranking is very important in this country. Effective communication is also very important, and these are, each and every one of those is quite challenging. We still have challenges when it comes to government and sharing information and a unified registry. We have a problem with the validity, reliability of data. We do have sets of data in different ministries, but how complete the data is, how reliable the data is, the quality of the data, and the willingness to share the data is one of those challenges that we have to really face and do something about. Not just that, but also what does the data mean? So turning data into knowledge and trying to get something out of it is something very important and is something that is missing in government, as far as what I have seen in government so far. So look at what we did here, because the story is not that bleak. We have already increased the spending on social programs. The money saved from energy subsidies has been going to more spending on health, on education, on cash transfer, on food subsidies, on farmer subsidies. Not necessarily, and I'll be very honest with you, not necessarily to the best investment in these sectors, because in cash transfers, we have increased the amounts of money given to the poor on our database by 50%, and we have developed new programs. On food subsidy, we have increased the efficiency. On health and education, we have been seeing increases in expenditure, but a good part of it went to salaries of the providers of the services. So here again, we need to have a closer look. It's not about just the amount of money spent, but how are you spending this money and where are you spending this money. However, we have increased the spending on social programs. Before the January 25th revolution, the money spent on subsidy was more than the money spent on health, education, and investment combined. This is what is happening now, and we are increasing allocations, and in the coming year's budget, which we are discussing with great pain with the Ministry of Finance these days, we are indeed increasing more and more the spending on social policies with a view on inclusion. Have we started? Yes, we have a number of programs that are up and running. We have a cash transfer program, which I'm very proud of. We have launched it. It's called Takaful and Karama, and it's a conditional cash transfer, and it is trying to institutionalize a new social contract. People who cannot make enough money to survive are entitled to a cash transfer from government, but it's a cash transfer that is conditional. If I'm going to give a family money, then they have to be committed to keeping their kids at school with an attendance rate of 80% at least, and passing from a year to another, and the money increases the longer the kids stay in school. So this is a very important condition that we hope we can maintain and monitor properly, because monitoring government programs is another challenge. The labor-intensive public works program, which started a year ago, or more than a year ago, is a program intended at labor-intensive small projects in infrastructure in the smallest villages, where you employ youth for short periods, 6 to 9 months, to improve the infrastructure and inject cash in local depressed communities. The food subsidy program is being reformulated to become more efficient. We hope that in the very soon future it will be also better targeted. Health insurance for the poor has started in 2 governorates, with Dr. Adel Adawi and myself giving health insurance to the poor in Asyut, in Aswan. We're moving to Luxor, we're moving to Kenya. So they're provided with cards, the poorest quintiles, to go to the health unit and to receive the health care and so on. For the national TVET program, the technical vocational training, and the slums upgrading, there's a ministry now for each of these, hoping that this will allow them to get the proper attention. And the 2 ministries' role is mainly coordinating efforts and pushing the agenda of technical and vocational training and slum upgrading. The inclusive housing program is an important program that the government is investing a lot in, and also the development and investment in SMEs. So these are programs that have started. These programs need to be coordinated, needs to be better targeted, and need to be efficient and really cost effective as well. So we do have challenges, unpredictable global economic growth. We are in a very, very difficult region, and I was thinking when Tariq was talking about Muwatin Arabi, what does this mean amongst everything, amidst everything that's happening in the region? It's becoming an illusion to me. Countries are faced with great challenges, and this was indeed a discussion that we had not in this Sharm el-Sheikh conference, but in a previous one with the Arab ministers of social affairs. We were trying to develop a common Arab positions to the Sustainable Development Goals and the post-2015 agenda. And we were wondering, how is this Arab world going to be looking like? And there were many questions. Some of them were very painful. How are we going to address sustainable development? Can we have sustainable development without peace and security? What is the role of the international community? What is the role of civil society? What is the role of governments with everything that is happening? So we are in a very unpredictable region, and there is an unpredictable global economic context that we have to be aware of. Our resources are very limited. We are celebrating the success of the economic conference in Sharm el-Sheikh, but as I was reminded by Tariq coming into the university, that you have raised 60 billion, you have 240 billion to go, because the president said you need 300 billion for this country to achieve what it needs to achieve. Low institutional capacity, very high bureaucracy, and resistance to change is a major challenge in our government. It's unbelievable. I mean, ask me about it. I was giving advice while out of government. Now that you're inside, there is big resistance when it comes to change. People prefer to continue doing what they have already, been doing for years. And any change that takes them out of their comfort zone is resisted. And this is one of the challenges that I hope that people like you guys can give us ideas on how to address. Unsustainable social contract leading to higher expectations. We continue to have expectations in our society that government should be doing everything, should be paying for everything, and should be taking care of everybody. This is a social contract that has been developed over the years, since the 60s, and it's part of the culture and the beliefs in this country. I feel it very much when we speak, for instance, about pensions and pension funds. And when you talk to people, and they have the right to say so, that what they get is very little and is not enough, and things are getting expensive, but the idea of the actuarial financial sustainability of the funds is not there. They say that government should be paying us just like how they pay government employees. They should also pay those who have retired. But those who have retired in Egypt are around 10 million. So they want to have all the benefits, including Eid al-Adha, and including Ramadan, and including this and that. So give us a month, give us a bonus, give us this and that, even after retiring, because they feel it is the responsibility of the government to take care of everybody. We do have a very high population growth issue, and unless we're able to do something about it, and do something about it very quickly, we will not reap any benefits from any developments. We keep talking about the 2.5 and 2.6 and 2.4 growth rate, but this is not the issue. Growth rate in rural Egypt is beyond 3%, and this is very scary. So regardless of the growth, of the successes in the economic arena, if we continue growing at this rate in rural areas where you don't have enough schools, where the infrastructure is not ready, where you don't have enough healthcare services, then this will eat up any benefits and any fruits of development. And we have very significant levels of informality. 2/3 of this economy is probably in the informal sector. It's quite challenging to give the right set of incentives to attract people to the formal sector. And as long as people are in the informal sector, then it is very hard to really have proper baseline, proper impact, proper monitoring, even proper targeting, because we're finding it very difficult to find exactly what people are getting and how people are managing in such an informal setup. Our partners in this are the private sector, civil society organizations and donors, and what we are really keen about is inclusion, not just, again, because social justice is important, because the poor are good, because the lowest quintiles deserve attention, and because we are a kind government, but because we believe that social inclusion is key to political stability, to more economic growth, and to sustainable development, not just in Egypt, but in the region. This is a region that has been suffering from disparities, regional disparities, geographical disparities, sectoral disparities. I cannot just finish my presentation without raising a serious concern about the status of women in this region, and the status of women is actually deteriorating. Women are the first to be hurt in cases of violence, instability, wars, Libya, Syria, what's going on in Lebanon, with a population that is suffering from 30% displaced and migrants people in Lebanon. I was in Jordan, in Tel el-Zaatari, and on the borders you see 160,000 women who have left their homes with children, with no husbands, with no income, with no resources. Talking about 160,000 might not sound very scary, but when you see them in tents, it is very scary. So speaking about inclusion without speaking about women and how women are hurt by what's going on in the Arab world and by the economic issues, the safety issues in Egypt and in the Arab world, I think is very unfair. So inclusion is inclusion of all, and on the top of these are women and youth. Thank you very much. And I just hate to ever end on a negative note. I believe that this country has a chance, has an opportunity. Dr. Ahmed has a nice saying, we never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity, but this time we don't intend to miss this opportunity, and it's time to work. And I'm very happy that you are discussing, I've seen the agenda, it's a very rich agenda, and I think it's very important for policymakers to listen to the kind of work that you are doing, to read it very carefully, to take policy decisions that are evidence-based. And maybe what the previous governments needed to do more is to read the Human Development Reports, the MDGs report, the Sustainable Goals report, to listen to the likes of Malak Zahlouk and others who are now advising the president. So we're very proud of that, and we're very happy that you have a very rich agenda, and I wish you a wonderful conference. Thank you.
غادة, والي, and I think that we'll communicate in terms of the deliberations of the discussions of this conference to be communicated to the Arab Summit that is at the end of this month, happening in Sharm el-Sheikh, inshallah. This concludes the opening session.
There's petty, small corruption here and there, and there's bigger corruption here and there. It's part of the reality. There are efforts. There is the highest committee for corruption that is headed by the Prime Minister, and it has the head of the الإخبارية. And we are asked in every ministry to have a committee on corruption and to present what are we going to do to fight corruption. And there's a lot of talk about corruption. I have my own views about corruption. I believe that corruption will be stopped and will be less. It will not be stopped. It exists in all parts of the world, in all countries of the world, the most developed and the least developed. And we're not one of the very worst. There are many countries that are much worse than us when it comes to corruption. However, the levels of corruption that we have are unacceptable. I believe that two things need to happen if this country is going to get rid of corruption. One is rule of law. Serious rule of law for everyone. And our ability and our commitment as citizens to change. I believe that each and every one, most Egyptians, let's not say each and every one, but most Egyptians are corrupt in their own little ways. We're not willing to change. We always want to break the law here or there, be it parking in the wrong spot, or be it not willingness to stand in a line, or being willingness to get this or that. We not even in a building where we all live together, our willingness to work together to pay our dues for the elevator, our ability to work on improving our country, the public space, everything. We speak about how dirty the country is and how dirty our streets are. But you see many people driving beautiful cars and yet throwing garbage from the window. This is a way of corruption. We speak about change and we speak about a better Egypt, but we're not doing our own little part. I think being a role model, each and every one of us, in our own little space, and reporting corruption and not accepting it, we need a cultural change. We have become a society that accepts more or less many corrupt practices, and we just let it go. So I think there's a cultural change, and there is a question of serious rule of law on everyone. Serious rule of law meaning that from the minister to the president to the prime minister to everyone down, we really all have to abide by the rule of law. So we can't just exceed the speed limit, and I keep telling my drivers, it's not because that you have a government plane that you exceed you exceed the speed limit. But they believe that they have the right to do so because this is a minister's car, which is unacceptable. So it's the responsibility of each and every one of us to really start and fight corruption. I was in a lecture at the Center for Social Research, and we were discussing education. And a mother stood up very angrily and said, when are we going to have better education in this country? Our kids are not learning anything. And I said, when the parents stop going around the السنوي and giving the kids mobiles and going with a microphone and telling them the questions and the answers and getting them private tutoring because they want to get better grades, not because they want them to have a better education. So I think we each have a role to play in corruption, that the government has to be very serious in terms of transparency. Everything being more transparent, the more things are transparent and simple, the more rules are announced, the more rules are transparent, the less corruption we have. I think it's a challenge and it's going to take some time, but it's about rule of law and change in our culture. I don't know if this is the politically correct answer or even the right answer, but this is how I think about it. Inclusion of academia and universities, I think we're not doing enough of that. And I thank you for the comment, and I'm going to change the presentation because I said in our partners, civil society, private sector, and I will add to it academia. We have to remind ourselves of that. So thank you very much. What the government is doing is that you find that each and every minister has a group of advisors who come from the academic world, who are university professors. So those who did the PMT for us are the professors of Cairo University, Faculty of Economics, Dr. whom I'm very proud to work with, Dr. Shirin Shawarbi, and so on and so forth. When we do a paper on SMEs, we get Ala Saeed, we get Ali Al-Mahdi, when we work on the cash transfers, we use the AUC Hania Shokami to work with us. So we each have our own group of consultants who come from universities. The 2030 strategy uses a number of university professors, but there isn't enough formal links and institutionalized links with universities, and this is a weakness, and I've added to my presentation, and we really should do something about it. On citizen engagement, we're not doing enough of that. We have to learn to do that. Citizen engagement and communication is very time-consuming. And we really have to pay attention to it and believe in the power of citizen engagement. And historically, we haven't been doing, it has been a one-way stream. Government talks to the people, doesn't listen much to the people. I think what has happened in Egypt in the last few years has forced governments to listen more and to pay more attention. Not necessarily because they like it, but because they have to. And the people have become very loud. But we're not communicating with everybody still, and we're not communicating formally and regularly in an institutionalized manner, and we need to do more about that. And we're sort of confused. Do we need a minister of communication and media, or we don't need one? Sometimes they're here, sometimes they're not here. It's a discussion, it's an ongoing discussion. But we have an awareness in government that we need to communicate more with media. The power of media has become very important, and through media you reach citizens, but I believe that media should not be the only channel, that there should be different ways and different forums of communication and citizen engagement. Civil society, empowering civil society is one of these tools. Talking to youth through universities is another way of citizen engagement. Encouraging and improving volunteerism is very important. We're launching 2 programs in the ministry. One is called the Youth Empowerment Initiative, where we are training 40,000 young men and women, 50% of them are women, on how to communicate their plans to the villages to become small parliamentarians in the local elections. We have 53,000 seats in the local elections, 25% by constitution should be youth. So we are training 40,000, 3 for each seat. And we're doing this in all governorates, and we're using civil society. So I'm giving 48 million pounds of grants to NGOs in governorates so that they start training youth on identifying local problems, developing a plan, and communicating that plan. So this is a program that we're launching that is funded by my ministry, and the team is managing it is in the ministry I'm responsible for. The other program is called BINA. BINA مصر بكرة أحلى. BINA is an initiative for volunteers, and it is for social accountability. We want volunteers. We have a GIS map where we put all social care services, and we want women and youth and citizens to become more engaged by holding us accountable and by volunteering to go and check with a checklist, with a very brief training, a 2-day orientation training, and then they get a checklist, and they are requested to go and look at the social care units and the social services being provided, and to report the quality and raise a red flag when they see one. So we have on this map, you know, if you tell me where you live, I'll tell you on your street if there's an elderly care home or an orphanage or a women's shelter home, and you're invited to volunteer and help us. So that's another way of engaging citizens. However, these different ways are very challenging because you don't know what to expect. And also because the staff in the ministry resisted very much. Nobody wants to be accountable, nobody wants to be monitored. So let's be very clear about it. We have citizen engagement involves change. You want to engage people, they will tell you ideas, you have to be willing to listen to those ideas, pick some of them up, and implement, or else they will continue to communicate with you. So this willingness to really engage and to hold ourselves accountable is something that we in government need to train ourselves to do. The public servants and the quality and their capacity. The capacity of the public servants is weak. We have a long way of training. There's a new law that introduces performance appraisal. One of the reasons why people are weak is because there's no performance appraisal and you can't fire them. So if you can get rid of staff and if you invest enough in training people, and if you try to really find different ways of rewarding the good ones, will help improve the public servants' quality. However, I want to tell you something. I was always complaining about the quality of our public servants, but you cannot deny that in 4 years of very turbulent environment, politically, economically, and socially, this government and these public servants have not failed us. I delivered on the 1st of the month in Al-Arish, in North Sinai, in a military zone, pensions to every Egyptian who has one. I deliver pensions for social solidarity, even at times of a war operation, a military operation in Sinai, people get their pension day one. With no internet, because with Hazrat Tagawul at 7, and with no internet, my staff move in cars, take the money and deliver. Schools are working, food is delivered, passports are delivered, IDs are delivered. We have produced 750,000 IDs for women just last year alone. And those were produced by civil servants. So there is a bureaucracy that is slow, that is partially corrupt, but that is working. And that is delivering. And we have to give them credit for that. And when I got to know them, I really respect them. They work with no tools, with no training, with no infrastructure, with no leadership, with no vision. So what do you expect them to do? They have been left there for years and they haven't been modernized. So the more, the more capable we are as leaders to modernize the bureaucracy and train them, and then have a proper performance appraisal system, they will deliver. I'll just tell you a very quick story and I'll end so that we will already past the time. On 4 months ago, the post office decided to demonstrate and go on strike. And they said, we are not paying pensions. Post office not paying pensions means we have 9.5 million pensioners. 1.3 million of the 9.5 million have bank accounts, okay? So, for the 1.3 million with bank accounts, we used to do 3,000 checks, we're not doing anymore. Now we push a button, we have modernized, they all get their money on the same day with one transaction. But for the rest, what are we going to do? Post office said we are on strike, unless you give us more money, we're not paying pensions. So we have decided in the ministry that all of us are going to work 24/7 for 7 days, and they head to the post office, and we pay everybody their pension on time, and they learn their lessons, because they get paid from the bonus they get from our pensions. And we delivered. People were willing to work and sleep in the offices, and they were very excited about it. And they did it without much noise. So I think with proper motivation, and when they are under the pressure to deliver, the Egyptian bureaucracy does not fail us. And I think they have protected this country, and they have been resilient, and we have to give them credit for that. They could do much, much better. The Egyptian people deserve much better. We could do well, very well, with only 1 million or 2 million. Dr. Ahmed Darwish is better than me on this topic. But I think after all, they do deliver in very difficult environment. So I hope I gave them the credit they deserve, and I thank you very much for your questions and for your comments.